Have you ever cared about someone so deeply, only to watch them slowly pull away, retreating into silence, creating distance where connection once lived? Or maybe it's you, the one who steps back, the one who finds intimacy suffocating, who feels safer in solitude even while craving closeness. This paradox, this dance between desire and fear, is one of the most misunderstood experiences in human relationships. It's the story of avoidant attachment, the psychology of pushing people away even when your heart quietly aches for connection. On the surface, it may look like indifference. Someone with this style of relating might seem cold, detached, or uninterested. But if you look closer, beneath the armor, there is often a very different truth. A history of emotional survival, a strategy learned long ago to cope with the pain of vulnerability. What seems like distance is often protection. What seems like rejection is often fear. And understanding this pattern can completely change how we see ourselves and others. See, many people believe that the need for intimacy and connection is optional, like a hobby. But psychologists and researchers like John Bowlby, the pioneer of attachment theory, have shown us that it's as fundamental as air and water. As children, we learn what love feels like by the way our caregivers respond to us. If comfort is consistently available, we internalize the belief that closeness is safe. But if comfort is inconsistent, absent, or overwhelming, the mind adapts. It says, to survive, I need to depend less. I need to appear strong. I need to turn inward instead of outward. And so the avoidant attachment style is born, not as a weakness, but as a brilliant survival mechanism. But here's the paradox. What once kept you safe now becomes the very thing that keeps you isolated. As an adult, the avoidant attachment style often plays out in subtle but powerful ways. You might notice yourself feeling uneasy when someone gets too close emotionally, even if that's what you secretly want. You might avoid deep conversations, dismiss feelings, or prioritize independence so heavily that relationships feel like a threat to your freedom. You might even find yourself pushing people away, not because you don't care, but because caring feels risky. There's a psychological tension here, what researchers call the approach-avoidance conflict. It's the tug-of-war between longing for intimacy and fearing it at the same time. Imagine standing at the edge of a war motion. Part of you wants to dive in, to feel held, to be surrounded. Another part fears drowning, fears losing yourself in the waves. So you stay on the shore, watching others swim, yearning yet retreating. That's what avoidant attachment feels like on the inside. Now, you might be wondering, why does this happen to some people and not others? The answer lies in early relational patterns. For some, expressions of need were met with rejection, withdrawal, or emotional coldness. A child learns, if I reach out, I'll be let down. If I open up, I'll be hurt. Over time, they stop reaching. They stop expressing. They bury their needs so deep they almost forget they exist. And by adulthood, independence becomes not just a strength but a shield. But here's where it gets fascinating. Studies in neuroscience reveal that even those with avoidant tendencies still feel the same biological pull toward connection as anyone else. The body craves closeness. The nervous system responds to touch, eye contact, and emotional warmth. But the mind, conditioned by years of survival, sends out a different signal. Retreat, control, detach. It's like living with two internal voices, one whispering, come closer, and the other shouting, stay safe. And if you've ever been close to someone with avoidant tendencies, you've probably felt that push-pull dynamic. One moment they're warm, present, even deeply engaged. The next they withdraw, grow distant, or create emotional space. It's not random. It's the attachment system activating, trying to protect them from the vulnerability of depending on another human being. Now, let me ask you something else. What happens when this pattern shows up in love? Imagine being with someone who cherishes you, but fears the very closeness you offer. Imagine wanting intimacy, but feeling overwhelmed when it actually arrives. This contradiction can lead to confusion, miscommunication, and even heartbreak on both sides. The avoidant partner may be silently battling an inner storm, feeling guilty for pulling away, but also terrified of surrendering control. The other partner may feel unloved, rejected, or invisible, not realizing it's not about their worth at all. It's about fear disguised as distance. This is where the philosophy of attachment becomes deeply human. Because isn't it true that so many of us, in one way or another, push away the very things we long for? We want love, but we fear being seen. We want closeness, but we fear losing ourselves. The avoidant attachment style simply magnifies this universal paradox. But here's the good news. Attachment styles are not prisons. They're patterns, and patterns can be understood, worked with, and slowly reshaped. The first step is awareness, seeing the pattern for what it is, rather than labeling it as coldness or weakness. Avoidant individuals often carry a quiet strength, a fierce independence, a resourcefulness that was born out of necessity. But beneath that strength is often a longing, a part of themselves that still aches for connection. And acknowledging that longing is where healing begins. Psychologists often speak of the earned secure attachment style, a place where, through reflection, self-awareness, and healthy relationships, people can shift toward greater security. This doesn't mean becoming someone completely different. It means learning to trust that intimacy doesn't have to equal danger. It means slowly allowing others in at your own pace, while realizing that vulnerability isn't weakness. It's the birthplace of genuine connection. Think about it. The walls we build to protect ourselves also keep love out. The armor we wear keeps us safe, but it also keeps us lonely. And life, at its core, is not about avoiding pain. It's about learning how to let love coexist with the risk of being hurt. Because love is always a risk, but so is isolation. The truth is, avoidant attachment is not a flaw. It's a story written in childhood, revised in adulthood, carried into relationships, friendships, and even work. And like any story, it can be rewritten. The pen is still in your hand, even if it doesn't always feel that way. So maybe the deeper question is this: what would happen if you stopped pushing people away? What would happen if, instead of retreating, you allowed yourself to stay just one moment longer in the presence of closeness? What if, instead of seeing dependence as weakness, you saw it as the most courageous act of all? Because at the end of the day, we are not built to go through life untouched, unseen, or unloved. We are built for connection, and while avoidant attachment may whisper, "Stay safe, stay distant," the heart always knows the truth. That healing begins when we allow ourselves to be held, even if only for a moment. But here's where the journey gets even more profound, because the psychology of pushing people away is not only about fear of intimacy, it's also about identity. For many with an avoidant attachment style, independence becomes almost sacred. The very thought of needing someone feels like weakness, almost like betraying the self-image of strength they've carefully built over the years. They're used to being the one who doesn't ask, who doesn't rely, who doesn't lean, and so letting others in feels like losing control. Yet ironically, the very strength they prize often masks a tender truth. Even the strongest among us long for the softness of being known, of being accepted, of being loved without conditions. It's a contradiction that can make avoidant individuals feel like they're at war with themselves. One part of them saying, "Stay free, stay in control," while another whispers, "Don't leave me alone." If you've ever noticed this in yourself, you know how exhausting it can be. You might catch yourself withdrawing when someone starts to care too much. You might feel a wave of irritation at their closeness, only to later feel the ache of loneliness. You might rationalize your distance by saying you're too busy or not ready, when deep down, what you're really protecting is the vulnerability of being seen. And if you've been close to someone avoidant, you've probably felt the sting of mixed signals. One day, they open up and you feel like you've finally broken through the wall. The next, they retreat into silence, and you're left wondering what you did wrong. It's easy to take this personally, but here's the truth. Their withdrawal isn't about your worth, it's about their history. Their nervous system is wired to see closeness as risky, and until that wiring begins to shift, the cycle continues. But cycles are not destiny. Neuroscience tells us that the brain is malleable. New experiences can literally rewire old patterns. When someone with avoidant tendencies begins to experience safe, consistent, and non-demanding love, Little by little, the walls start to soften. It's not instant, it's not easy, but it is possible. And it begins with awareness. Awareness of the pattern, awareness of the fear beneath the armor, awareness of the longing that never really disappeared. Now here's something fascinating. Avoidant attachment doesn't only show up in romance. It weaves its way into friendships, careers, even the way people handle success and failure. An avoidant person might keep friendships at surface level, never revealing too much. At work, they might prefer independence, avoiding collaboration where vulnerability might creep in. Even in moments of triumph, they may struggle to celebrate with others, because closeness, even in joy, feels foreign. It's not that they don't care, it's that caring openly feels unsafe. And yet, here's the paradox. Beneath the armor, avoidant individuals often care deeply. They love with intensity, but silently. They show affection through action rather than words, through consistency rather than vulnerability. Sometimes the very person who seems distant is the one who would quietly show up in your hardest moment, because love, though hidden, is still there. So how do you begin to move toward healing if you recognize yourself in this? The path forward is not about tearing down the walls all at once. That would feel overwhelming, even unsafe. It's about gently opening small windows, allowing yourself to be seen in tiny moments, testing the waters of vulnerability, and noticing that not every act of closeness leads to harm. Maybe it starts with sharing a small fear with a friend. Maybe it's letting yourself lean on someone for help with a simple task. Maybe it's simply sitting in silence with another person without reaching for distraction. Each small step is a message to your nervous system. Connection can be safe. And for those who love someone with avoidant attachment, the key is patience. Pressuring them to open up often backfires because it confirms their fear of being overwhelmed. Instead, what helps most is consistency, being a steady, safe presence without demanding more than they can give. Over time, that safety becomes the soil where trust grows. But let's zoom out for a moment, because avoidant attachment is not only about individuals, it's also about the culture we live in. We often glorify independence, self-reliance, the lone wolf mentality. We admire people who seem untouchable, who never show weakness. And while independence has its beauty, it can also feed the cycle of avoidance, teaching us to prize distance over intimacy. But what if true strength isn't about standing alone, but about daring to stand together? What if courage isn't found in pushing people away, but in letting them see us as we really are? Because the truth is, connection is not weakness, it's the deepest form of resilience. To let someone in is to risk pain, yes, but it's also to open the door to love, belonging, and healing. Every great relationship, every profound friendship, every bond worth having is built on the courage to be vulnerable. And here's where philosophy meets psychology. If life is fleeting, if time is limited, then what really matters? At the end of our days, is it the independence we'll cherish, or the connections we allowed ourselves to make? The walls we built, or the moments we let them down? The avoidant attachment style teaches us something profound about being human. It shows us how fear can shape our choices, but it also reminds us that fear does not have to have the final word. Because here's the hidden truth. Pushing people away may feel like control, but it's also a form of self-abandonment. Every time you retreat from love, you retreat from a part of yourself. Every time you silence your need for closeness, you silence a piece of your humanity. And deep down, no matter how far you run, that longing remains. So perhaps the real invitation is this: to stay. To stay a moment longer in the discomfort of closeness. To stay present when your instinct says to withdraw. To stay open when your heart wants to close. It won't feel natural at first. It may feel terrifying, but slowly over time, staying becomes easier. And with every moment you choose presence over retreat, you rewrite the story of your attachment. Because the truth is, intimacy is not the enemy. Vulnerability is not a trap. Connection is not a weakness. These are the very things that make us human. The very things that transform survival into living, loneliness into love, existence into meaning. So if you find yourself pushing people away, know this: you are not broken. You are not unlovable. You are simply human, shaped by experiences that taught you to protect yourself. And now you have the chance to write a new chapter, to let the armor loosen, to let the walls soften, to let love in one breath at a time. Because at the end of the day, the psychology of avoidant attachment is not just about fear, it's about possibility. The possibility of moving from distance to closeness, from fear to trust, from loneliness to connection. And that possibility lives in you, waiting quietly for the moment you decide to stop pushing away and start letting in.